Hey guys, I'm Brittany Xavier.
And I'm Anthony Xavier.
And you're listening to The Long Game.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Long Game podcast. Today, we are going to go over our home buying experience. We are in the throes of trying to search for a property in Tennessee. And after purchasing 2 homes in California, there's some things that we have definitely learned along the way on what to do when you're just getting started trying to find a home and purchase it. I wrote down some things that stand out to me and what we've learned, and it can be a very fun and exciting process, but as Brittany has seen, when I handle the mortgage lender side, it can be very stressful, and all these people are calling you to get more information or get them all synced together. And by that, the realtor, the mortgage lender, maybe the property owner, there's a lot of things that, because you're such on a tight window of 30 days of closing, you want to make sure everything is lined up, but that whole thing can get very stressful. So you're ready to start looking for a house. You're like, okay, let's purchase a home. And when we wanted to buy our first home, the biggest thing on our list of to-dos before we did that was to pay off our student loans. I think once we had those student loan payments paid...
We'll just get out of debt in general, you mean?
We'll get out of debt, but for us personally, it's just to get those student loans out. But yeah, you don't want to have credit cards, because once you get that pre-approval letter, you start going through the lender, they're going to see, okay, the debt to income ratio. And if you have too much debt, credit cards, student loans, car payment, all that stuff, that's going to either disqualify you or you get a lower pre-approval amount for a house. So if you were trying to buy a house for $1 million, you got a pre-approval for $1 million, but then you have this debt that could bring it down, or you might not even get approved in general. So for us, we really wanted to take care of our student loans, because those were some hefty payments that, on top of a house, on top of, okay, now we have to take care of the utilities and the maintenance of the house. It was just going to be a lot for us. So we really wanted to be out of debt. And then next, you want to focus on, and Dave Ramsey preaches this too as well, 25% of your take-home pay is dedicated to your house. You don't want to go above that. You don't want to be house poor.
Well, first you got to get the down payment before you get the payment of the house.
Well, but if you're looking to see if you want to purchase a home, I guess because if you don't know what value, right?
Well, I think first deciding what your price point is, because you want to put down at least 20% for a down payment.
Exactly. But so it goes hand in hand. So if 25% of your take home, that can show you, okay, what type of price point your house can be. And then from there, you can take 20%, because you want to put 20% down. I know there's other loans out there, like the FHA loan, that requires you little down payment, but you're going to pay that PMI. And that PMI is
Explain what a PMI is for those who don't know what it is.
I was literally just going to explain it until you cut me off.
What does it stand for?
Private mortgage insurance. And so the bank puts a PMI, and basically you're paying, I don't know, maybe $100, $200 a month extra on top of your loan to the bank directly. It's not going to your house payment. And basically the bank is saying, you know what, we want this extra cash, because say you default, say you can't pay your payments, at least we got some money out of you. And that PMI is going to be there until you get up to 20%.
So you're better off just waiting and saving until you have that 20%. I think to make us more, I think for our first house, we put down like 25 or 30%, right? Because it was our first home buying, and we were trying to explain what we did and for work. And I feel like that was a way to help it.
Yeah, we had to put a little bit extra in. I think it was 27%. And
because we didn't have any debt. So they're like,
because we had our own business, and it was social media, and that was back in, Not to where the banks
2020.
were very aware of, okay, wait, influencers are making money doing this. But they can see on our tax returns and they're like, well, yeah, we need a little bit more.
And we didn't have we had a really high credit score, but also we didn't have that much debt. So also
Yeah, there's
that was
like
an
those
issue.
factors.
But you can work with a bank if you don't want to have, because we always thought that you had to have debt to buy a house, but you don't. You can work with, I'm trying to think of what the mortgage company is, but they basically do manual underwriting where they don't use your credit score.
Yeah, there's ways to purchase homes without having to have a credit score.
So don't let that discourage you. You just have to have a mortgage lender who is willing to work with you and be creative. So if you're not getting the results you're working with someone, just find someone else. There's other people that will be creative and work with you.
And there's also brokers that you can find a broker and they have a network of lenders that they work with, but you are going to pay a broker fee.
But how would you find a broker?
You can go online, but I mean,
Oh,
personally,
you're saying like, wait, go to a broker instead of going to a bank?
you can go to a broker and they have a network of mortgage lenders. They have
Yeah,
a
but how do you
network
know
of
if someone's a
lenders.
legit broker?
I mean, you can go on Google and do the reviews, but for us, okay, personally for
Yeah, because
us,
I'm like, I wouldn't just trust pulling up and be
Well,
like,
not just
hey,
like a
can you be my
random-
mortgage broker?
yeah, but for us, our real estate agent, she knew some great brokers that she's worked with for years, and so she was able to point us in that direction, which goes to another tip. You really want to have an agent that is seasoned. She has a great network of people, real estate agents and brokers and mortgage lenders. Our agent, she's very knowledgeable. She's been in the business for years and she came through a referral. So that's how kind of we went through that process. And she's still our agent to this day after how many years? I don't know, 6 or 7. But she's sold and helped us buy and sell both homes basically.
And then she'll help us sell our California home too.
Yeah. So having a really seasoned real estate agent, you could go online and see reviews, but I would reach out to your network, families, friends. Hey, have you had an experience? Do you have an agent? What did they do for you? Are they very knowledgeable? Did they get the job done? Was it stressful? Did they listen to you? That's a big one, because you don't want an agent to push a house on you that it doesn't really fit what you're looking for. So they need to be able to truly understand, okay, this is my vision. This is the house I want.
And I wouldn't go with someone just because they're your friend and maybe they just started selling homes. And I really think having a seasoned person who has like a track record, and our agent has 15 years plus experience. You can see her portfolio of how many homes she sold, how many homes she's helped people buy. And they also have a reputation with the mortgage lenders too. So that also helps. And she had to be pretty bullish during 2020. Remember when the bank was really dragging their feet on that one?
Yeah,
They were overwhelmed because of COVID with all like the offers coming in.
We almost lost our first home because the lenders were dragging their feet, and she had to get on multiple calls and basically put a fire under their butt and be like, hey, we need to get this done.
But they were inundated with other, like the housing market in 2020 was insane. And so if our agent just sat back and let the mortgage lender do her thing, we would have timed out of the offer, right? Like it would have just expired.
Well, at a certain point, if the contingencies, so there's a contingency as to when the lenders are supposed to close. And so if you miss out on that contingency, the seller could say, hey, you know what, this deal's off. Like you didn't meet the deadline, so I'm going to pull out. So there was that possibility, but we were able to get it in on time. And
because she was hounding them.
Yeah.
Saying like, this needs to come to the top of your desk right now.
Yeah. She's a bulldog.
So
Thanks,
that
Jane.
worked. That's why we highly recommend someone who isn't afraid to be really firm when she needs to be.
Mm-hmm. So once we took care of our debt and decided on our price point, we needed to get a pre-approval letter. So you want to have that in hand, because when you go out and start looking at homes or your agent gives you a list, some of these sellers may require a pre-approval letter. Also the agent too, because she or he doesn't want to waste their time showing you houses that are way out of your price range. So you need to get that pre-approval lender so you need to get that pre-approval letter from the lender.
And that's when she circled us in with someone that she highly recommended and said, hey, reach out to him. Just say you need the letter. He's going to ask for some numbers for you. He's going to want to see some bank statements. It was a very much more quicker process than an actual underwriting, but they wanted to see actual numbers to see what they're working with.
Mm-hmm. And once we got our pre-approval letter, you have to understand the costs associated with the house. And that's looking at, say, the houses you're looking at has a really big yard. For instance, our second home, the one in Pasadena, we're renovating, massive garden, and the utility bill on water and electricity is higher than...
I think if we're talking about people starting out with their first home.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You have to understand there's other costs associated with just your mortgage. So you want to pay attention to the maintenance. It doesn't have a really big lawn. Does it need water? What's the cost? What does that cost look like? Also your insurance. And for us, we had the insurance and the
Fair plan.
So that's the insurance portion. So fair plan, but
which is not fair.
Well, it's basically our only option because we live in California and all the insurance people are pulling out of California. And so
because California regulations make it super difficult for insurance companies to have competitive rates. So it's like you get the bare minimum there. Bare minimum coverage, expensive. And the area we live in Pasadena, is high fire zone. And it was right next door to the Altadena fires. So that, of course, the premium went up right after that too.
Yeah, no insurance companies were going to do fire, so you have to do the California Fair Plan, and then you get insurance for structural or other things from an insurance company. But yeah, the insurance is really high in California.
In that specific, if you're in a fire zone too, which after the fires, I will not want to be in a fire zone after that. Like that was like confirmation for me too. Like I don't want to be in this, like the evacuation and everything.
Even our
that
first
was so
house,
scary.
do you remember after getting into our first
right.
house? I think what it was like 3 weeks in, there was the fire on the mountain, and we can see the fire.
And everyone had their house. Remember they were on that email chain, and they said everyone had their cars packed in case we had to evacuate. And we thought our house is going to burn down. We just bought it.
We need to get out of here. And but so within your mortgage payment, there's two options. So you need your insurance, and then your taxes. And in California,
but you can't. That's the thing. You can't get a mortgage unless you have fire insurance. So that's also hard for some homeowners or some first-time buyers if they can't get fire insurance and they can't afford the fair plan. It's too expensive. It's hard to get a mortgage out there.
And that's where you have to either
pay cash or
get a lower house.
Right.
Or
no, not a lower house. Like you're saying, like just don't get in a fire zone, like a high fire zone. I think all California is though, right?
Yeah, all California. So, I mean, this is specifically for California where it's crazy because there's no insurance company is going to do fire. So you have to do the default, and that just raises your insurance. And then
but out here in Tennessee,
payment.
For example, you have to have fire insurance still to buy a house, right? I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm sure you do, but it's not going to be as high because what are the instances of fires out here? I'm sure they have them, but I don't know because we haven't crossed that path yet into looking for insurance out here. But when trying to calculate your mortgage payment, there's two options. You can wrap in your insurance and taxes. So every month that gets taken out and gets paid into an escrow, and they take care of that for you. Or you can decline that, and then you can save the money yourself. And then, well, actually the insurance you have to pay all up front. And then the taxes, you pay it 2 times a year. So it really depends, but you have to calculate those costs too when looking for a home. Now that you have your price point of what you're looking for, you can afford it. You're not going to be house poor. Now you can start looking at homes.
I think researching the market is important before looking at homes, don't you think? To know if like you're in a buyer's market or how long homes sit for in the area you're in.
I mean, you can, but then you're going to get caught in the whole, well, when is the perfect time? And then you're never going to time the market perfect.
No, not when is the perfect time. But for us out here in Tennessee, we know that we don't need to make an offer right away because there's not going to be multiple offers on the house. The houses are sitting out here for an average of 60 days. So we know that it's not the same thing in California where there's low inventory. And if you like a house there, you need to make an offer on it because especially if it's like a first time home buying price point.
And that's where your real
The
estate,
more luxury homes, right? Like over, even in California, $1 million is an entry level home that like needs to be redone there. So it's like if you're in the past, like if it's like a second home or, you know, you're like the second time you bought a house, then that's when I feel like sit a little bit longer. I think it's over like 5 million. But if you're in a first time home buying price point, those homes are going to go really fast in California.
and that's when you have your agent, and they're going to be able to let you know where type of market you're looking at. Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? Should you wait until the winter where maybe there's a little bit lower inventory, but you're going to get a better price compared to the summer where you can there's more inventory and that's the season of house buying, but those houses could be priced higher than what you typically would want to pay.
And if those houses sit after the summertime, then you have more of that advantage if a house is sitting longer. But if you're in a hot market, then it's not, the chances of it sitting, you know, past 30 days is low. But so I think having an idea about where you're at, where you want to be. Are you trying to be a little bit more rural? Are you trying to be more by the city? Are you looking for school districts? Trying to figure out where, like research the area, the neighborhoods.
And that's kind of where you have your buy box, or that's what they call it. Like, what are you looking for? What factors really matter to you? Do you want to have a really good school district, or do you want more land, or do you find a house that's 3-bedroom, 3-bath, but you can add on to it? There's all those different factors that come into when you're looking at your list. And
so when we were looking for our first home, she told us, because it was 2020 and it was it June or July?
July.
She said, if you like the house, we need to make an offer that day because you need to have your pre-approval letter. And we had driven by it at nighttime and I really liked the property. I thought it was so charming, but we saw it at night. So then we drove by the next day and we loved it, fell in love with it. Obviously we could only see the photos online through Redfin or whatever, but so we told her we loved what we saw from the neighborhood driving around, but she said, you have to be serious if you want to go see this house because it will go quick. And so that made us feel a little bit more like we needed to be serious if we really liked it that day, we would need to make a decision later that night. And so we walked in, we fell in love with it. We also thought of it as a potential, it needed a lot of help. So that house we ended up redoing top to bottom, but we had that in mind. We wanted a house that we could redo at that time in our life.
And that's another good tip where our agent gave us a list of houses, but before we told her, okay, let's go see these properties, we made sure to drive by, because there's quite a few houses on that list where we drove by the neighborhood and it was across the street from a school or it was close to a freeway. It had loud noises on a busy street, and we're like,
One had a homeless encampment right next to it, but it wasn't shown on the photos.
Yeah.
So you really have to, I think that doing the 360 street view helps me narrow down a lot too, because I just can see if it's on a busy street. I don't want a street with yellow lines, which means it's like a highway or something that's going to be hard for the kids to play outside. So we were looking for some privacy, but we didn't want to be too far out of Jaden's school at the time. We wanted to make sure the commute wasn't too far. So it narrowed us down where we wanted to be. And that was in Pasadena at the time during 2020, but we were considering Glendale for a little bit, some places in LA, maybe closer to downtown. And we just kept going back to Pasadena after driving by other houses too. So you kind of figure out the neighborhoods when you drive through them. We also didn't want to be the best house. Well, no, we didn't want to be the worst house.
No, the best house.
The best house on the worst
neighborhood.
Street.
Neighborhood.
Because there were some that you could tell they were house flips where they were the nicest house on the corner. So you want to think about, even though you might think you want to be there forever or be there for a long time, maybe 10 years, always think of the resale value, because something could happen. Maybe you have a family member who gets sick and you need to sell the house and leave. Like things come up, just think about the resale value. And you don't want to be in a house where it's also hard for that person to sell and you're now stuck with trying to sell it later on.
Well, and that's an important thing too, is yes, you are buying a home, but you want to look at it like you also are investing in a home. Like you want to make sure that, okay, if it is all brand new and you're paying top dollar, we thought we found our forever home, and that saying gets thrown around lightly, but it could not happen. You could be like, after 3 or 4 years, life changes and you move somewhere and you want to move somewhere else. But if you bought a home that was completely renovated on a street that you were the top house, it's going to be difficult to sell it for the same or get some money back from selling it. Like there's little wiggle room as to what type of profit you're going to make on that home, because it's already been redone. You can't add a bathroom. You can't add another bedroom.
I mean, you could redo it, but it does take into your profits too.
Yeah. It's
like you're tearing out a new bathroom to make it maybe more stylish or a little bit more aesthetic, but you're not really adding a ton of extra value to the house.
Yeah. It's all just, what is it? Aesthetics, basically.
But also with our first house. So our first house was in a neighborhood that what was it called? Not Hastings Ranch. I'm literally blanking on the name.
Glen Oak?
Wasn't Glen Oak?
I can't think of what that's called.
Something with the Glen.
Yeah.
Pasadena Glen.
Pasadena Glen, yeah.
So it's like this little neighborhood that is kind of like it's like a woodsy area. So you kind of have to drive down this like private road. And so you drive up a hill and then you drive down this road and there's like an area of houses down there.
It used to be, back in the 50s and 60s, kind of a summer retreat, like cabins and a pond where people would go and spend the summers out there. But it had that. There's
like a public hiking trail down there and it's really beautiful. But all the houses were like a little bit more outdated over there. And a lot of people have homes over there that they're retiring in and they just haven't fixed them up. So our house was definitely, once we fixed it up, was the nicest in the neighborhood. And our realtor at the time, because we were getting quotes to think about redoing the backyard, maybe putting fences, because we constantly had bears in our yard, which were really cool. But at the same time, like,
kind of scary.
It was kind of scary because we didn't want to, Poppy was so little at the time, but sometimes I wouldn't want to go outside in the daytime because a bear would just be like sitting on the side of our yard.
Well, I walked into the backyard and there was a mama bear and 3 cubs, and it couldn't have been more than 10, 15 feet away from me. I'm like, and then I just like slowly walked back inside the house. But
yeah, they were always kind, but also we weren't trying to threaten them or anything.
Yeah.
So that there was a little bit issue there. We didn't have a fence around our backyard. So we were trying to figure out if we just were trying to think of how to make it more private in the backyard to where the bears couldn't come in. But she said, at this point, I would not add any more to this house because you're maxed out on right now what you can sell it for. So even if you jump in more to the backyard, the rest of the homes don't help. It really depends on the neighborhood of what the other homes look like, which you wouldn't think that. But if you have a dumpy house across the street or a house that has a ton of, let's say you have a hoarder neighbor that has like a ton of junk on their yard, that's going to affect your property value. So you really need to think about that when you're looking around. And that's why driving the neighborhood is really important. When we were selling our house, we had a few doctors, a few attorneys look at the house, but because it was like in the area, I love the neighborhood and we loved how private it was, but their concern was that the road was a little bit, it's like a one-way out road. So you can't just get out quickly. And if there's traffic, you're definitely blocked. Like say there was a tree truck or, sometimes they do maintenance and you're stuck behind the truck until you can get out. And so that was a concern, which we didn't think about that because we don't commute to work. So when we bought the house, we were like loving the fact that it had privacy. And if someone drove down the street, it would be very strange because you would know that someone's not supposed to be there unless they live in the neighborhood. So we really like the privacy, but again, that could be a downer to someone who is trying to think of the commute. So think about that with the resale of like, is there anything that could potentially be a downer on this house later on?
That doesn't necessarily fit your lifestyle, but maybe someone else's lifestyle. Like you have to kind of look at all the aspects, look from an investor cap.
Like we looked at a house, we drove, every time I save a house, I like to drive by it here because the 360 view on the houses out here are sometimes a little bit difficult to see, especially if they're more woodsy. And so it's easier if you're in a neighborhood with houses all together, you could see, but because we're looking for more land, sometimes you do the 360 view and you can't see the house from the street. And we drove by one yesterday that looks so great on paper, beautiful, like 5 acres, so cute from the outside, needs some work on the inside. It was like a perfect amount of remodel. Like you could move in, but you don't have to like tear down. It's not like molds growing on the walls. But we drove up to the street immediately, no, because there was just so much traffic on the the traffic was crazy, and it was just such a high traffic highway. And we thought that is going to affect these people probably are going to have trouble selling their house. If a family is looking to have their kids play outside, that's going to be a huge.
Yeah, I would not feel comfortable.
I would not feel comfortable there at all.
It was a 3 lanes on each side, so 6 lane.
It was like a freeway, but it wasn't a freeway.
Highway. I think they call them highways.
People were going really fast, and it just was, I don't know. I mean, it's like one of those things, right? Like if you were older and you didn't have kids and you're just like there, me and you were there, it wouldn't be an issue. We'd be like, well, we're not going to be running in the street. But just thinking about those things from a family perspective. But I think it's really good to just drive by homes and get a vibe. If you can picture yourself living there, do you feel safe in the area, driving in and out?
And that's where, because right now we're not ready to put in an offer on a house right now, but through the last couple of months of just looking at homes, getting a feel for it, getting inside the houses, that really gave us great perspective as to what we are truly looking for. So it's never too early to just start looking at homes. Say in 6 months, you guys are going to be ready to buy. Don't wait until, okay, now we're ready, and then start looking, because you want to have those few months to really, you think you have an idea. And even for us, when we first came out here and started touring homes with our agent, they're completely different than the homes that we're looking at now.
Yeah.
And that's just because when we got in, we started to realize, we don't like this, or maybe we do need more land.
I think it was learning the area. The areas that we looked at the first time, we would not want to be there now. Yeah. They were too far away from everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing about renting now, is because we truly get to understand our schedule, the places that we go to. We found a church. So when looking for our new home, we want to make sure we're not too far from the church, 20, 30-minute drive, that we're in an area where we can get to, say, Home Depot in 20 minutes or get to Target in 20 minutes. Everything is kind of like 20, 30 minutes of where we want to be at. But it's never too early to start looking at homes, because then you're going to start to narrow down what your likes and dislikes are.
And also, too, if you build that relationship with an agent, then they're also sending ones that they see potentially off the MLS before they get listed. If, say, it's like our agent will send us one that it's her friend and she knows that they're going to list it soon, but it's before it goes to market. So sometimes you'll get those deals off market, I guess, like private selling deals, because they're having those conversations. They're saying, this is what my client's looking for. If anything comes up, let me know. And they'll say, hey, this is going to be listed in a few days. Would you guys want to see it? So it's nice to have that relationship and have them know exactly what you're looking for and be really open and honest with your agent.
Mm-hmm. And as we start looking at houses, we have our non-negotiables. What are some of our non-negotiables?
Non-negotiables are, I don't want to be the worst house. I keep saying it wrong. I don't want to be the best house
So we don't really...
I don't want to be the best house on the street.
So we're not looking for new builds. That's one of our non-negotiables. Another, when we go in, light. I think light is a big one, because you can fix certain things inside a house, but the way the house is situated, we want to be able to see the sunset. We want to have the rooms filled with light. So do we need to switch the windows, or are we in an area, even if we switch the windows, is that can even make a difference?
Covered with shade, covered with trees.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the location, light are things that you can't change. You can change everything else about the house if you really wanted to, depending on what size of project you want to do. We were really gung-ho our very first house about, we wanted to make it something that we could it was our first project. I'd followed a lot of interior designers and seen the before and afters. So we went into that thinking that we wanted something that was older. And that house needed help. I mean, it had mold. Like there was a lot of things
There was a lot
wrong with that first house. But we saw the potential. And I think that just having that vision. But if, you know, like your parents are looking for houses and they don't want an old house, they want a new build because they're like, we don't have the energy to try to redo all these things. So they're coming from it from a different perspective. So it's like you just have to figure out what is important to you and what, like, do you want to redo the kitchen, or are you hoping that someone else redid it and you can just move in and don't have to think about it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, do we even have the energy for another renovation?
I think that if we did a kitchen or bathrooms, like for example, if we were to buy this house, I am obsessed with this house. Like I love it so much and I wouldn't change anything except I would update the kitchen because Elliot breaks so many glasses in there.
The way it is situated, he has access to everything on top of the counter.
Because it has a breakfast nook, so he can stand on the breakfast nook to get into the dishes, turns on the sink, and so if there's any glass left in the sink, he will pick it up and sometimes throw it. And we've broken so many glass just because the first week we were moving in trying to unpack the kitchen. I didn't even think about it, but he was just climbed up there like no problem.
He's quick.
He's so quick and he'll get something. He's so funny. He knows too. I'm like, I don't even know how to not have him do that. Like I can't I don't want to put like a child gate on the breakfast nook. It's just, that wouldn't even work. Yeah. So that the whole configuration of that is it's not good for having a 1.5-year-old. But I love the light it has in the kitchen, the light wood. Like there's so many aspects of it, but it's just like not very, I have to like get him out of there if I want it. Or I put him in this high chair and look at books, but now he can climb out of his high chair. So I'm like, what is he doing?
In and out of the high chair.
He is so funny. He will climb on the breakfast nook, scoop back and get into his high chair and have books with him so he can look at his books. But I literally turned around one day and I'm like, did he just get in his high chair? It's just like, he's so quick, but he's just so like, I'm like, that happens so fast. And he just gets in and out. And yeah, but the breakfast nook, having him, it's like the perfect height for him to climb up. And Poppy will sometimes sit in the dining room because she doesn't want him to get into her stuff because he can just climb up and like get into whatever she's eating. She's like, he's going to get my food. So, but I love that kitchen.
That's been fun. But another non-negotiable could be price. It could be the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. But when you start looking at houses, you want to make sure you have your list of non-negotiables so you know exactly what you're looking for. And you also don't want to talk yourself into, well, okay, I wanted 3 bedrooms, but they only have 2. Could we add 1? Could we not? You really want to have that list secure. So it's like, okay, it doesn't have this. Let's move on. Because the more houses you see, we've started to narrow down kind of what we're looking for, but it can also be overwhelming. And then you start to think like, wait, do we like this house? Do we not? Because that excitement of, oh, let's find a new home. Let's get into it. And, you know, start this new life here, but you don't want to rush into it because you're trying to talk yourself into it.
I'd rather rent longer than just get into a mediocre house because you feel pressure to like make a decision.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were even like that with renting before we bought our first house. We were fine with renting forever until we found something that worked for us. Because you also have to think about the maintenance, and it's not like you can sell it right away unless you want to get that. What's that tax? Like if you sell it under 2 years. We didn't get it on that one because we had it for just over 2 years before we sold it.
It's like short-term and long-term. So like a short-term sale basically is anything under 2 years, then it's going to be taxed differently, but that's on your profits. But I know in California, if you're married, you can have, say you sold your home, you can have a max of $500,000 in profit, and they wouldn't tax that basically.
So luckily we didn't have to, we were right after the 2 years, right? Because if it's under 2 years, you kind of get penalized for selling it sooner.
You just get taxed higher. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to think about something that you're going to be in for at least 2 years. Like I would think like if you're buying a house, think of something that you're going to want to be in for at least 5 years, right?
I would say 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Because, you can have more kids, maybe you outgrow it. But I think over the 2, we sold ours, I think it was 2 years and 3 months.
Yeah.
It was like right over when we sold our first one, but we had also redone it. But if we had bought that one redone and then sold it like that, we would have made no money. We probably would have lost money.
Yeah. Because the market was super hot in COVID and then it died. And then, yeah, we definitely would have lost some money.
We would have lost money if we didn't redo it. But we made good profit from that. And that was what allowed us to buy our house that we're redoing now. And we're going to make great profit from that one because it's basically all redone. And so, yeah, so you do get an investment back, I would say, for working with an interior designer, which if you wanted to do one or two of the rooms, like I think highly for me, I would spend money for an interior designer for a kitchen because it's like the flow and everything. They're understanding how the home works, but also the resale value of it being designed from a designer really does help the house, especially if you're in a market where people are valuing more the style or the flow of the house versus like if it was just like a redo that's like cut and paste from a lot of other homes.
And that's what we started to notice too. When we look at photos, you can tell, this is the same construction crew or the design crew that did this house compared to the last one. Or we've also started to notice when you look at a house, you can tell they did portions of the house at different times, like they renovated it, but
it's all mixed match.
Yeah, it's all mixed match. The vibe didn't all go with the house. And I mean, I couldn't do that. I would need someone to have their input because, yeah, I'd be like, oh, this bathroom looks great. And then be like, we can do a kitchen and do it ourselves. But I don't think it would match the same.
And just, yeah, I think if you have an idea and you want to do it a certain way, but I do think, and even with our house in California, because it's turnkey designer, that also ups the price too. So like someone has that emotional connection, they go in, they love the house, but it's also done by someone who's like, it's skilled and trained in the area of remodeling homes. It's not just like they're a builder, they're like, they have the design eye. And so it doesn't seem like it's going to be an investment. It seems like sometimes doing it yourself is going to save you money, but it does help with the resale of the home if you want to think of it that way. What is the style home that you are never excited about? Is there anything where you keep going back to that you're like, I don't like those type of homes?
It's interesting because as we start looking, I'm already put off by a lot of white. When there's just a lot of white everywhere, and I know that can be changed. It's more of the fixtures, the bathroom countertops. If everything is white, you have marble in the shower, those are a lot harder. I mean, that's going to be a full bathroom renovation. But with regards to like the walls, you always want to look past what you see just on the picture and be like, okay, well, we can change the wall color. The flooring isn't going to be that bad. There's some of them, they had carpet and we're like, no way. So we can put wood there. But it's primarily, if you go into a kitchen and the cabinets and the appliances and everything, the big high ticket value items that's just all white, or they always love to do white, blue with gold accents. And it just doesn't feel warm. It reminds me of our last apartment that we were in.
Well, you're saying if it's a new build or you're saying if it's an older house? Because usually the older homes don't have that.
Older homes,
and we haven't really been looking at any new builds. The only thing is we had looked at, I was so bummed about that one house. It was so cool. It was like that old style log cabin. It wasn't a log cabin, but they had redone a lot of the interior with wood that was from the 1700s. So it was like very preserved really nicely. It was like a little bit rustic, but still like clean. It wasn't like you're actually stepping into an old log cabin. But then the bathrooms and the kitchen were completely redone like an apartment.
Modern.
They were so modern. They didn't fit the vibe of the house at all. It was just like so jarring. It looked like you were in like a Miami penthouse kitchen, but then you're in a log cabin. It was so strange. But that just, I can't even imagine buying a house because the price was higher because they had redone the kitchen and the bathrooms. But to think about that, the kitchens, it didn't even fit the house at all. Yeah. Like you're in complete nature. They had a horse area. There was, area for animals. So you're coming in and out of the kitchen. It was just like the kitchen was too nice for the house. And to think about tearing that out and redoing it,
We
it
wanted
just,
it to work because it was in a great location, had lots of
location was
land,
amazing.
and it just, but that was going to be a whole nother project and just wasted money because you are paying for a brand new kitchen that you're going to ultimately have to tear out to redo to fit the vibe of the house. So it just.
But we were honest with the agent and said we love the location. We love the rest of the house because it had like a really pretty fireplace, like kind of rustic, and like I want it to feel like warm and lived in, not so like stale and new. And I mean, you can do that with a remodel. Like you can make it look like old wood and like that old world charm. But we told them, we're like, yeah, if the price drops, that would make more sense because then we're not paying for like the kitchen remodel. But it's just like you have to be honest with your agent. It kind of explains. So it's like nice to walk through homes like that and understand what you're looking for and what the undertaking you have. And I couldn't picture our family being in that kitchen. That's the other thing. Like if you can't picture yourself being there, it's like that was one where we were like, could we? But it was like we had to talk ourselves into it.
Yeah, and I feel like our first two homes, we just knew we had that feeling of like this is the house.
You can picture your family being there, like you see the potential, and there's like little things you have to change, but I think the other two were location for us though. Both of our houses in California were prime, and the house our second house in California, we had thought about the road issue with reselling, and the road that we're on now is like, this is great. This is like, an iconic area. This is great for resale. So we did think about the road access because we didn't even think about that with the first house.
That was our first mistake.
First mistake we made with that one. So I think just like walking through, even the photos sometimes don't do it justice. So if you do like the neighborhood, you drive by it, you think it looks good, everything else around it is good. We drove by any house that we have on our list. We always drive by it, and then we'll either keep it on the list or mark it off. But that way you're not meeting with the realtor and then only to find that there's a homeless encampment across the street. Well, that was for California, but out here.
Yeah.
I think seen any.
A big one that we are starting to make sure or become aware of, because we are trying to buy something with land, is what does the land around us look like? Because there's a lot of new builds popping up here, and if we find ourselves purchasing a property with land and there's land next to us, like, is that going to be a development later on? Are they going to put condos or single family homes that are only on half an acre? But we're really trying to be aware of, okay, what is the zoning going to look like in the surrounding areas from where we want to purchase our home? Because that can, if you were there long term, that can definitely be a downer.
And that can take down your property value for reselling too.
Yeah. So it's nice because a lot of the homes that we have been looking at, they're like, and no one's touching the land. They're making that a big point, because people out here, once you start to get in the areas that we were looking at, they want land, they want privacy, they don't want houses right up next to them. And so if you are looking for a home and you're in that type of situation, be aware of, okay, could a development be built across the street from me? Thinking long term. Now, when you find that perfect home, it's fun and exciting. You put in your offer, they accept the offer, and then it goes into all the contingencies. And one of those contingencies,
first of all, though, you can be in a market where you're getting multiple offers. So it's like, do you go up in price, or do you just decide to lose the home?
That's where your non-negotiable is. Like, what is our max budget? And if it goes beyond this, then it wasn't meant for you.
Because what year was that where we had put an offer at another house? Instead of thinking about renting, we were going to redo the other house and then buy another one, right?
We were going to buy a house.
Instead of renting somewhere to like kind of help with that investment aspect. So we put in an offer in a house in Pasadena that was like it was really cute. It was redone, but in a really nice way. It was
not redone.
It wasn't? I thought it was redone.
No, it was going to be some work.
No, not that one.
The tiny one.
No, not that one. I'm talking about the one on the other street that we put an offer and there was 31 offers.
Oh,
we were
that
like,
one.
never mind. And it went for like $1 million over.
Yeah, that was
It was
ridiculous.
the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But it was not worth $1 million extra. And so the agent came back to us and said, oh yeah, if you can just up your offer $1 million. Are you nuts? Like, no, what? I was shocked by that. I didn't even know that was even happening in the market out there. I was shocked.
It was a really cute house.
It was
though.
really,
had
really
like a
cute. But it was an entry level price point for Pasadena, which we're like, oh, this is perfect. We can live here for 2 years. You know, I thought it was redone in a really cute way, though. They had like the back guest house that was cute. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of mature fruit trees.
I felt like there was half an acre or maybe
like it was really
a third
cute
of an acre backyard.
For the price. Yeah. But I guess they had priced it lower thinking that they would, it would go up like that. But that was nuts. It wasn't priced correctly then. They should have priced it higher because then we wouldn't have just made an offer on it. If it was $1 million, that's probably what it actually should have been listed for.
Yeah.
Crazy. So that was a weird experience. We're like, whoa, 31 offers? Like, we are out. Like, this is not for us. And so that's like also a weird time in California too.
Yeah.
But out here, they're not having multiple offers like that.
I don't think so.
Houses are sitting a little bit, like for 30 days average, 60. I'm seeing some on there like that have been on there for 4 months, but they're they're more land. So it just depends on, someone who's looking for being more in the downtown area. Those ones might be going quicker.
Yeah. Maybe
really
our search
depends.
Criteria.
Yeah.
Their houses are sitting a little bit longer. But so yeah, once you kind of put it in, they accept your offer. You go through the contingencies, and one is an appraisal, which you always want to make sure you get an appraisal, because if that appraisal comes back and it's lower than what your offer is, it's time to like renegotiate, because then you don't want to pay for something way over
it's not even what it's worth.
Yeah. Another big thing that we always made sure to do is the inspection. I feel like there was on the first home didn't have too many big call outs. The one thing was the AC. We had to replace the AC. So that was an expense that you're not really...
Well, you go into it with the inspection knowing what you have to fix. And so that also helps us make an informed decision about if the house is worth it, knowing that we have to replace the AC. They had found mold, so we had to do like mold, or did they do the mold remedy before? It's like different things that either they will take off the price depending on what it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, we got credits back on what needed to be fixed, and they saw the mold and we saw the mold.
Yeah, you can smell it too when you walk in. But I think the biggest thing for us was if there was anything foundational, we weren't going to move forward with the house, because that's a really big expense to take on, is trying to fix the foundation of the house. And if it was slanted or, we're in an earthquake zone, like we just didn't want to be in a high risk area like that with having like cracks in the foundation. But everything came back fine with that. But that was the one thing that we thought, let's not get our hopes up until we see the inspection report.
Yeah, you always want to get an inspection report with our second house.
Well, a lot of people during 2020 skipped the inspection just to get the offer, and they got so screwed because they found things that they had to fix, and also to resell it, you have to...
Well, they're using it as a bargaining chip. They're like, well, we can skip the inspection, or...
It's terrible. You never want to skip an inspection. I don't care how good the deal is. I would never skip an inspection. Hearing the stories of people, what they were stuck with foundational issues, with like huge mold issues. Like, can you imagine stepping into a house that you had just purchased and now you have to do all these massive repairs because they're underlining. You can't see them from the outside.
Yeah.
You need to go into the crawl space. You need to go into the attic and see all the things that are like underneath.
And even with our second home, we had the inspection done, and they told us like the sewer line, it was all rusted and it would probably need to be replaced in 2 to 3 years, which during the renovation, we knew that was coming. So we planned for that. Also, the fireplaces, there was damage in there. So that was another cost we put into the renovation. So there was things that we were made aware of and not surprised as we started doing the renovations or things start to break down. And we factor that into our budget. So never skip a home inspection, even if there's other offers and they're saying, hey, we'll do it without the inspection. Like, don't have someone force your hand, be like, okay,
Don't rush
well,
into it.
yeah, exactly. Don't rush into it. You don't want to take an emotional state to home buying. Yeah, you do when you walk in a house. Could you see yourself, your family, that emotional aspect? But then once you, okay, let's put in the offer and let's get into the nitty gritty and start seeing, okay, does my offer line up to what they're offering me? Am I going to find myself into any issues? And if there are, then you have to walk away.
And I think that I shared this in my Substack. If you guys aren't subscribed, check that out. But we had shared that when we had gone to look at a house recently, it was about an hour away from our church. And so we fell in love with the property. That was a property that if it was here where we're at now, it would have been way more, just because the area, like the area was more on the outskirts. So it brought down the price, but it was a beautiful home from like the 1870s, but it was like redone thoughtfully throughout the years. So it kept history, but it also, they added like just a lot of like that old world charm that I love. And it was just very homey, and like the sitting areas were just very, it seemed like you could totally picture your family there. And the porch was screened so you can be outside and not have bugs on you. There was like all these little things about it that was just like, wow, we could picture this. And then you kind of start to get wrapped up into the emotional aspect of it. Like, oh, I think this could work for us. Like it checks all of our non-negotiables. And the only thing was that it was an hour outside of things. And so we were really trying to talk ourselves into it and thinking like,
we can drive an hour.
We can drive an hour. Like,
podcasts.
We love country roads. Like we don't like the traffic in LA. That's why, one of the reasons why, or one of the commute out here is just a different type of commute. Like we're more in the country. It's a different, you're like looking at cows and horses.
Stressful.
It's not stressful at all. My restorative time is great when we drive. So I was thinking of all the positives of like, it's great to be in the car. We can listen to more podcasts. And when we stopped with the emotional side of it and we focused on what our goals were for moving out here in the first place, we didn't want to lose sight of that. We didn't want to be in a house that was still over the budget of what we had originally decided on. And we didn't want to be an hour outside of where we can take the kids to church during the week if they have like a VBS or there's something else going on. So we stopped with the emotional part of it and got back to our basics and our foundation of, we want to be near a church. We want to get involved with our community. We want to be able to serve at the church too. So it's like, if we're not just driving in one day a week, we're driving in multiple days a week. If we want to, I want to get involved with the children's ministry or like whatever we can do, that hour away for the house is going to put a hindrance on things. And like 6 months in, are we going to be as involved as we thought we were going to be? So I think you can get really in wrapped up into, this is perfect for us, like, and make like little negotiations of like what could work. I mean, yeah, there's some things like if the church priority wasn't high for us and we didn't have any area to be into, like if we didn't need to be close to anything, I would have totally put an offer on that house. Because if, say, you just make that what it is and you're, starting fresh, some people pick a place on the map and they're like, we're trying out here, and they're, trying to find a farm and they're going to start from scratch. That would have been different, but it's like we had the community that we wanted to be near. So we couldn't lose sight of that just because we got wrapped up in like this exciting, adorable house. And another thing is I shouldn't have put the search out an hour out to see what else I could find. And so that brought me back into, no, I want to be in a city that we're thinking of. Let's keep our search there. Let's not get distracted by, oh, this looks like a better deal, or this is something that would be a great resale value down the line. And just keeping your focus that, like, why do you want to buy that house in the first place? Like, if you are buying a house because you want to get into the school district and then you start looking at houses outside of the school district, then that kind of defeats the purpose of, maybe you should just rent in the school district you want first.
Oh, that's a good point. And to go in with the house inspections, the seller disclosures, I know when we were selling that first house, we had to disclose things that we are made aware of. And a seller disclosure is basically like an example of something that could be on a seller's disclosure.
And then also we put on the seller disclosure that there are bears in.
We had to do the bears.
We had a lot of bears in the neighborhood, and that we also had given them the plans that we had looked into for the
put a pool. Oh no,
to put
landscaping.
no, not landscaping, to put a fence around to protect against the bears. So we gave them those design plans as like an extra bonus, but we had told them everything that we could think about that had happened in the neighborhood and with the bears, any wildlife, we had made those known on
And
the
we had to
seller's
do about
disclosure.
the pine trees. Remember,
The
we
pine
had
trees?
there was a couple of big pines, and one of them was completely dead because it had some infestation of some insect. But basically, the insect goes in and kills the tree.
Oh,
And because we
I
had
don't remember that.
remember we were trying it because we had to get an arborist out to
Oh,
remove.
that's right. He came out a few times.
And so he let us know, like, okay, this tree is dead. It needs to come out. So because we were made aware of it, we had to put that on the seller disclosure.
Because we were going to try to remove it, but then we decided to sell when we found that other house. And so we put that on there saying we were going to do it. We were going to remove it. This is all the... So I think we didn't we like take some money out of that just for them to repair?
I think there was
Can't
for
remember.
them to remove the trees, but
But if you're buying a house, I highly recommend looking into any seller disclosures.
because that's an inside view of the person that has lived there for X amount of time. Like, you want
Because
to know.
what could we have said? I was thinking, like, could we have gone back to the house? Like, let's say, because she was giving us hassle pretty quick when we moved in there. And
No, because if it was bank owned and the people that were in there just because it's like the last owner. So if the bank had no idea, because all they do is they basically take the house back, they send some guy to renovate, or
but let's say the owner before us didn't disclose that the neighbor was nutso.
doesn't matter because it went into.
No, I'm saying, like, what if, let's say the
It
owner
wasn't bank
before, let's say it wasn't bank owned and she didn't disclose that. Let's say, like, she knew that that was happening and, like, that person was calling on her oak tree all the time.
I don't know if that's grounds for disclosure. I don't know if crazy neighbor, unless there was like a police report attached to it.
I mean, she called the police on us all the time. Couldn't that have been something for, like, harassment if we wanted to take it down that level? Like, through the city?
Yeah, if she was
But then I
harassing
guess,
us with that.
like,
but
what would that, I guess, like, what do the seller's disclosure, like, how does that protect you if you can't do anything about it if they don't disclose it? You'd have to sue them.
yeah, so that's why if you get into a house and there's something that's completely evident that the seller would have known about, then you can go back and you can sue them.
Okay.
So that's why it's very important whether, when you're buying the house to look at that, but also when you're selling a house to make sure you disclose everything, because you don't want something to come back to you and be like, they didn't disclose this and clearly they would have known about it.
Because do you remember any seller disclosures that we had on our other house when we bought it? The most recent one? I don't remember there being anything that was iffy about it.
They knew about the fireplace because they had done an inspection of their own before they went to put the house on market. So we were looking through that inspection and they had disclosed, the fireplace needs to be repaired, the sewers, because if you did an inspection, I mean, they didn't need to send us the inspection. We would have had to do it on our own, but because they had the inspection, they knew about everything. If there wasn't certain things disclosed on that inspection, then I guess it could have been in some trouble, but that's why you just want to be truthful and just.
They did come back to us, though. Remember when we made the offer and it had been sitting there for like 6 months, and then they said, oh, we had another offer, and it was like,
You're reaching.
we don't know, but I'm saying, like, you need to think about what is the number that you would want to lose the house. Like, if you didn't want to go up and match that offer, supposedly they had another offer, but I don't think they did. But we were giving them the benefit of the doubt. We're like, okay, it's been sitting for 6 months, but all of a sudden you have another offer the same week. So,
And that was the thing our real estate agent had
she's
told
like,
us.
they may or may not. But
At what price point do you want to lose this house at? Basically, like, how much, what is your max that you can feel comfortable saying this is the offer, and then if you lose the house, you're fine, you can walk away.
So we ended up going up a little bit extra. And
Which
then
that was kind of a back and forth.
yeah,
thing
that was a
where I'm
little
like,
bit back and forth. And we thought, I think the last time we thought, okay, if it doesn't get past this one, then that's going to be past our budget. We don't want to go past that. And then they accepted at that point. So, and we were upfront with them, like, if this is our best and final offer, we cannot go past this. This is past our budget after this, and that worked out for them. So That's why I was like, I don't know if there was another offer. You never will know. But you just have to be confident with what's your budget. You don't want to get wrapped up into
The emotional aspect.
because I do think that they use that as, oh, there's another offer. And you're like, oh, shoot, is there? Or do we want to risk not going up and then losing it if there is another offer? Because I don't think your real estate agent can find out for sure, right?
I mean, it's all based off of integrity.
Yeah.
Because it's the agent's talking about, like, well, you know, we do have another offer here.
Yeah, I
But,
guess if it's like a shady agent or something, but
yeah.
I think just like
But
going
it was
back
very
to like
coincidental that
it
they
was
had
very
another
coincidental.
offer after it's been sitting for so long. But hey, we're just going to let it be. We got the house.
we got the house. But yeah, I think it's like thinking about all that. Like, what's the number that you would say goodbye to the house if you say you have to match an offer? Think, okay, well, is this something I want to go up? How much more would I go up? Or am I good to walk away and look for something different?
Yeah, then maybe it wasn't meant to be. So after the contingencies and really understanding, okay, what you are buying. So you got the appraisal of the house. Is it priced appropriately? Then you got the inspection. Is there any underlying issue that can take more money out of your pocket? And then also, what was the other contingency? Appraisal, inspection. Maybe that wasn't. Oh. And then taking the house inspection into consideration and also the seller disclosures, making sure there's other weird things going on that could potentially make the house not a fit. So next.
Are you saying that's in the contingency?
No, seller disclosure. So
Oh.
you have the house, you have the appraisal, you want to.
I thought there was another contingency where you can pull out for another reason.
There's other contingencies that they can put, whether like the lender
They
contingency.
don't pass the inspection.
Yeah, if they don't pass inspection. I think there was
something else that she had talked to us about recently. I can't remember.
There's like 3 contingencies,
Yeah,
and then
you can write in
like
different
the
ones
last
just to really
ones.
protect you. Because isn't it when you put down a certain amount, like you do lose that money
At a
if
certain
you-
point.
Yeah.
So I think you have 7 to 10 days for an inspection. So you have to get someone in there. You can do a full inspection. You can do a roof inspection. You can do environmental. There's all these different things, all these different inspections that you can do on the house in a certain time frame. Because then after that, then that passes that contingency, and then you go on to the next one where.
But I think making sure that your agent writes in contingencies to protect you. So if you find something during that timeline of inspection that you can pull out without losing any money.
Yeah, the hard money. So there's a certain deposit to show, and it goes towards your down payment, but you have to put hard money to where if you get past a certain point in the escrow process, you can lose it. So, and that's where a very knowledgeable real estate agent will be able to walk you through the steps. But once you put in the offer, they accept, the clock is ticking, and you need to get.
You have to get everything done.
Yeah, you have to get in there. You have to make sure everything is squared away, and
you can also ask for a 60-day closing if you wanted to.
Yeah, but then the seller might be like, well, if he has 2 offers or if there's other things, then he's like, I don't want to do a 60-day
closing.
Yeah, because the house has been sitting for longer.
So
there's other options, but I'm not an agent. I was trying to be.
Wait, you have your real estate license in California, so you technically are an agent, right?
I guess I am, but
shouldn't you know more? Didn't you pass your
test? You would think I would,
I'm
right?
like asking you because you studied all of this. You did study it when we were going.
That was
into
a year
labor.
ago. That was over a year ago. I took the test in March. It's already been
crazy.
a year.
Yeah, we were thinking about doing flipping homes because we thought about adding more of like a little bit of design element, and then that was before we decided to move to Tennessee. But now I would love to do it out here because the flip opportunities out here are so good because they're not nearly the price of California.
It's not as expensive.
It's not as expensive.
There's room to, we messed this up a little bit, but we still made a little bit of money.
And the school districts out here, people move for the school districts. So if you found a little house out here that you're thinking about it for a family who would want to move out here for the school district, think about that with the design. How would a family use it versus how a builder redoes it? And it's all the same. There's just something about the stamped remodel that's just oh.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be our next venture.
Not right now, but you'd have to study a whole new state license.
I'm sure it's not terribly different, but so after you start getting through that, there was a lesson that I had learned, and I wish someone had told me, but during the escrow process, you don't want to start moving. Well, for my example, I had moved money from one account to another account because our business accounts and personal accounts, but I was moving money around just because that's what I do. And during the escrow process, the lender is like, wait, what are you doing? Why did this go to here? That it just made it more confusing and added more time onto the process, which I didn't even know. And so during the escrow process, you don't want to open new credit cards. You don't want to
Because then they have to like investigate
purchase
all
a
that.
car. Yeah. I mean, and then it's also adding to your debt too. So the debt to income ratio, but financially, you don't want to do anything. You want to leave it as it is, because what the lender is going to ask for is they're going to ask for your last two monthly bank statements. They're going to ask for the last 2 years of your tax returns. And then they're going to ask for investment accounts. I mean, they dig in deep to your whole financial situation because they want to make sure that if they lend you money, you're going to be able to pay it back. And during that process, if you start messing around with those accounts, or you pull from, say, like a Roth, or you take a large chunk of money and you withdraw it for whatever reason, they're going to question that, and that's just going to add
Because usually
more time.
our checks all get deposited into our business account, so you move over like some from our personal.
Well, so we have our draws, so yeah, exactly. We get
But why
paid.
would they think that's strange, like with running our business?
So what had happened is I was using our bank savings account as like a general savings account. And so when
wait, what?
So
Your bank savings?
Oh, sorry, not our business savings account.
Yeah.
I was using our business savings account as like a general savings account. I didn't think anything of it. I just put the money in there, and that was kind of like our savings account. But then when I started, okay, we need to have a down payment and do whatever we need to do, I was pulling from our business savings account into our personal, because it wasn't like I was taking our savings money and putting it into our personal savings account. I was just like, oh, this business savings account, I'll just keep everything in there. So there wasn't a clear definition between
so they're
the two
looking,
accounts.
yeah, they're looking at like what it's labeled.
So they're
as.
like, wait, if you're pulling money from your business savings account, but then you're using it as your personal savings, and then what about if your business starts to do bad?
But that's not even like that was like that was the savings. It's like emergency fund more. That wasn't like our investment.
No, it was just
savings.
it was just like everything was kind of
like anything you want to move over for like extra.
Yeah. And so when I started moving that money around, a lot of questions came up that I had to answer, which it was fine, but it just added more time and it was unnecessary. So I know we're in a particular situation where we do own our own business and we have two separate accounts, but for someone that has a W-2, they're
like
not
don't
going
make big purchases in the middle of that 30 days.
Yeah, exactly. Don't drop $5,000 somewhere because it's going to come up. Like you just want to keep the last 2 months squeaky clean and keep everything flowing, and then have your tax returns and whatever else they're going to ask. But you just don't want to touch it, or you just want to make sure if you are starting the house buying process, if you do need to make those moves, do it now. So when the time comes, you're going to have 2 months of bank statements that are clean and you won't have any hassle. So that was kind of a big lesson that I learned during that whole process.
Anthony does all that. I'm like, no thanks. I'll do other things. I like to be more creative, but we come together on our budget meetings. But as far as like nitty gritty doing all that, you do that.
Yeah, and that was kind of like the fun part
Half
where
the time I'm like, what's my last password again to stuff?
But when we were going through that whole process, I mean, how many times did I have to step out and take a phone call or call someone?
During 2020, you mean? That was crazy.
For both houses, though.
Oh my gosh.
I was just like nonstop.
Mainly because it's because of what our business is. They're like, what? How do you not have any overhead? Like, are you buying supplies? Like, they were very confused how we were making money and if it was legal. That was the whole thing. Was very, because we're trying to explain like, no, we do brand deals, but we don't have to purchase things to do them. Like we have employees, but we don't have like supplies. I guess that's like why they were
Supplies
so
or
confused.
products, yeah.
They're like, what? And because we were buying the second house from a foundation, because the owners had donated it to a foundation, and they were very confused.
It was an older
It was an older like
generation,
but the foundation, they had to like come to multiple people, and I think that was like a really big process because they had to approve whatever was the house sale, because
it was like a board. Yeah,
it was a board, and the sale of the house was going all to the foundation, so they wanted to make sure they were getting the best price, and also like people that would pay it. So
yeah, reputable buyers. But
different hurdles you go through, but I think just going back to making sure you have a really good agent that can, or a broker that can help you through all these different. And we even, when we first were looking at land out here, we had thought about different ideas of if we wanted to like rebuild something, or we're going back and forth. And when we had first talked to our broker in California, he didn't have any experience with farm or land deals. And so we had to find one out here. It was really important to be with someone who's experienced in the market, because even though he was really great in California for us and helped us with so many hoops, out here he is like, I don't know. It's
out of his realm. And so, yeah, our agent, she was able to connect me with a lender who is knowledgeable. He's like, I can't do what you're looking for, like that land. We want to purchase land, but I know some other lenders that's all they do. So he was able to forward me to that. And I mean, we ultimately decided not to buy the land, but having that network. We were
originally going back and forth on an older house. It was literally it was so old, but
pre-Civil
War. And it was like 100-year-old barn. It was really cool, like super historic, really cool, but it just needed to be completely ground up. So we had a historic person come out and look at like what the rebuild costs were. So you can get someone to do that too, like get a quote as like how much would a remodel be if you did want to take on a remodel. And that was really good feedback, because they said there's really nothing we can salvage about this house. You would have to rebuild it to look like the house. And at that point, it's like, what do you guys want to do? The land is really great. It's a great location. The way it sits, the way it sits with the sun is really good for growing food and all of that, and for having animals. But they're like, this is going to be a 2-year process building from the ground up, and you would build it to make it look like that, but it's not going to have anything in there because everything in there was like not usable. So that gave us a good idea of saying it's just not something we want to take on right now.
And that's a plus side to being in a buyer's market, is you have that time to be able to kind of research a little bit more, send in people that, okay, if we do take on this renovation, what is it going to cost? What's the cost going to look like? In California, it's a little bit of a different market, so you might not have that time frame, or there's multiple offers and people are going to move quick. So yeah, it really depends on what type of market you're in. But if you do have extra time, be able to dive into those things. Like, hey, what is it going to cost to take out the landscaping? Say there's trees everywhere, but you want a little bit more flat land. The house has been sitting for 2 months. You can get someone out there. Okay, how much is this going to cost? And then that really narrows down your budget as to, okay, I can swing this, or the cost was too high. It doesn't make sense to purchase this house now.
What about the interest rate? Because I know a lot of people hold back because they don't want to buy something with a higher interest rate. And it's probably never going to go back to what it was during COVID. Our first house was a 3.4% interest rate.
Well, it goes back to, everyone's trying to time the market. Okay, when is the market going to dip? When are interest rates going to be low? And it goes back to, what is the right time for you in your life, for you and your family? Do you have the money in the market today to be able to purchase a home? And is that the next step that you're ready for your family? I think waiting for interest rates to drop like half a point, unless the only way you qualify is if those rates drop. But
I think using that time, if the rate is a huge issue for you with the house payment, is increase your down payment and save as much as you can right now, for really be focused on getting your down payment up higher, because the more you put down, the less of a house payment you'll have. And ultimately our goal and I shared this in the Substack too, is what we've decided is we want to buy a house with cash from the sale of our other home and not have a house payment. And we've gone back and forth with that because also following the Dave Ramsey thing, he says that, not everyone's going to have cash. Like you're going to be saving all, for tons of years. And home buying does put you in a different category to building wealth. Like some people want to rent forever, but it takes you out of that. Home buying is just better on down the line too.
Because
for different examples, but
yeah, you're not spending money on rent. But then, there's conflicting ideas back and forth. You'll hear from some of the gurus that it's like, oh, your house is not an asset because you're paying money into it, and assets are supposed to pay you money. And it goes back and forth, and depending on what side you want to take is personal preference. But yeah, getting into a home so you're not wasting money on rent that you can afford.
It is more of the path to building wealth, though.
Yeah, you can
from
appreciate.
Just the stats.
I wouldn't say it's like this is going to be my ticket to long-term wealth, but yeah, it's that first process and to get into a home.
But so we had gone back and forth with thinking, well, do we put a percentage down, like put the least amount, the 20% down on a house and then invest the rest in index funds? Because we are kind of going back and forth with that, because I would follow some people on Instagram that had said, well, if you invest your money, you would be making more than what the percentage is for the house. But I think what I had come to realize, especially driving away from the other house that we really liked, is no matter what, if you make 2% more investing it in somewhere else, you still have the emotional aspect of the debt. Like you still owe someone. If everything falls apart and you have to still pay your rent. I always call it rent, but your mortgage. Like regardless, like I was thinking, like, especially with what happened to a lot of Jaden's friends with the fires, they're still paying mortgages on a completely burned down house. The bank doesn't care. They're not saying, oh, your house is burned down. That's fine. Like we'll just completely throw away the loan. Like
Not
you're still
down,
paying.
But
I'm sorry. The ones who didn't burn down, but their house are completely toxic. They're still in an Airbnb.
They're like the only house left on the block type of.
The cleanup has been terrible in Altadena. It's been a very, very slow process. They're really, really behind on it. It's like 4 months later and they're like barely sending trucks. But their houses haven't burned down, but they're right next to ones that burned down. So their complete house smells like smoke. They didn't get fire insurance coverage because their house didn't burn down. So they were saying it almost would have been better if their house burned down, but still they're having to pay mortgage on this house. It's not even livable. The soil is toxic from everything around it. And it just tanked the home value, but then they're still paying a mortgage on it. But I was thinking, like, if that had happened to us, let's say, and the house was paid off, it still would be a hit because you have no house to sell, but it's like less of a hit if your house is paid off because you have that debt. That debt is out of it's like your mistakes or like the natural disasters that happen, whatever. It's like, it's not as big if your house is paid off.
Yeah. Your house is definitely going to lose some value.
It's going to lose so much. No one wants to build on that soil now.
You're going to lose money that way, but yeah, you're not actively paying each month to a mortgage to a house that, great, now I'm still paying this. And
because let's say we put 20% down and invested the rest that we would have put down to buy the house in cash, you still have those payments each month. Like that's still part of your overhead of your expense. Like when you think of our monthly expenses, like imagine not having a mortgage payment. I just like the emotional freedom from that is more exciting to me than like the 2% I would probably make more in index funds.
And that's our purpose of why we wanted to come out here, is to really limit our expenses and see how far we can get it to. And yeah, knowing that the house you're on, the land, and it's completely paid for, that's a totally different feeling. I don't even know how am I going to feel.
What that would feel like at all.
But that's, our goals, and you may have different goals, but that's kind of what we're thinking long term. But to go back to the interest rate question.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I would just save more to put down more of a down payment.
Well,
like, if you don't want to pay it off, like, if you can't, save up, you want to get into a house, at least to just start the process of, like, the wealth building. Like, the more you can put down, the better, because then you have...
It lowers your payments.
It lowers your payment.
But they always say to marry the house and date the rate, because you can get into the house that you love, and if it's at a higher interest rate, but you can financially afford it, and the rates drop, and they drop to a point where, okay, if I refinance the house,
yeah, but I just don't understand that, because I guess you'd have to be able to afford the amount, because I think what people do is they get into the house thinking the rates are going to drop, and they don't. Like, the rates haven't dropped that significantly in the past year or 2 years.
That's what I'm saying. You have to be financially, like, if that's kind of the goal, like, lay it all out and be like, okay, if I get into this house, I'm going to be fine. But I know that if the rates are going to drop, if they do drop, at what point do they need to drop to where I can refinance this and have a lower interest rate? But it's really up to your own, what are your financial goals?
Yeah, because I think as long as you don't get that PMI, if you could put 20% down and then it said no more than 25% of your take-home pay, what your payment, and you can do a lot of those calculations on Zillow. We'll have, I think it's Zillow or Redfin. I use the Compass app when looking for homes.
Both of them have it, where you can do the calculators and they already put in the property taxes and potential cost of insurance. So they'll bake that into the monthly mortgage rate that you'll see on there. And that will give you a good idea.
Yeah, so that way you can kind of see, like, what the different ranges are that you could realistically afford that payment, and making sure you don't look for houses. I mean, I guess you could still look for houses a little bit over, depending on what type of market you are. Here, houses are going for an average of 100,000 less because they're sitting longer, so people are making offers that are a little bit lower, and the buyers are accepting. So depending on what market you're in, but in California, you're going in at asking. You're never going in lower, especially if it's like a really good deal, as far as like a house that's more of like an entry level market in a good neighborhood. Like, we never expected to make an offer that was less.
Yeah, I think even the first house
but we also came from a 2020 market, so yeah. I think it was a little skewed.
It was matched, but we actually got credits. I think we got like 30K in credits, which is
in the first house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so because the bank wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah,
if they would have held on to it for another month, they would have had so many offers. We got in right before.
No, it was right after.
No, it was July 2020.
Because we tried to sell our house and we had missed the. Oh wait, yeah,
switched. It was right.
Sorry,
it was right before it all.
Yeah, it was before.
It was all before, like, those when people were doing no.
I was thinking that
No.
When we were selling our house, that's when we had missed the COVID.
Yeah, we missed the COVID rush there.
But yeah, before, yeah, exactly. We got in right before that whole.
We got in, we got our house accepted and all that. Like, everything went through. And then I was hearing stories of people saying, like, 15 offers. They weren't taking any inspection. They were just getting in and looking at the house.
If we waited any longer, we wouldn't have.
We would not have been able to get that house if there was multiple offers. There's no way.
Or even, who knows how long it would have taken for us to get into our first house if that's how the market was.
Oh, there's no way. We would have just been renting longer.
Yeah. Is there any other tips that come to mind from our home buying process?
I'm trying to think. We've decided that we don't want a pool.
Pools don't really offer any value when it comes to getting your house.
No, I just don't want the kids to drown and fall in.
Well,
it's more of like a risk for me. I just don't want a pool in our backyard with little ones. Yeah. But we've looked at a few houses with pools, and we're thinking, could we fill the pool? Because I think it's like $10,000 to fill a pool. So I don't know. So we looked at a couple, and we weren't thrilled about the house. And so to think about the added expense of filling a pool in the backyard, but it does cut into the land. Like, they had a whole pool area where out here in Tennessee, I feel like you don't swim as much as if you're in California. I just don't think it makes sense to have a pool here. Because you only
have, what, 4 months maybe?
And you have mosquitoes more out here. I would get so bit up sitting by a pool with mosquitoes. There's no way.
The bug issues.
There's definitely more bugs out here. But just like the kids, I would just not feel comfortable. Right now, they run outside without a ton of supervision. So to think that I'd have to be hounding them to make sure that I've just heard, we've had way too many stories back in California with people drowning. And usually it happens at pool parties when people are not thinking that everyone's thinking that everyone else is watching the kid. And that's when it happens, which is like so devastating. But that's always been in my head. There was also a girl when we were younger that got her hair stuck in the jacuzzi drain and drowned that way.
Really?
That was always, so after that, I never swam with my hair down after that. I always had a bun because we'd swim all the time at our friends' houses. But just thinking about that now, all of those different concerns that I would love to have a pool and maybe they're like 10, 12 and they have their friends and they want to swim. It's like they're running out there by themselves. It's like they're not toddlers. I mean, Elliot would probably jump in without even letting us know what's going on. He would for sure.
We were at the last house that had the pool, and he had taken the ball, and he likes to throw things into water. And I was not too far away from him, but he was just walking straight beeline to the pool, and he wasn't going to stop.
Yeah, I was like, no, we're not doing a pool.
And I rush and grab him real quick, but I was like that. Even just that alone.
Because Poppy was never like that. She would never just run into water without. Even if she was little, she was always very cautious. He's just like fearless. We'll just do whatever and dump his head under. He'll just like jump in the bath if I'm like, whoa, wait, I haven't filled it up all the way. He's just like in there already. So yeah, we've decided about, there's those things that you can change, but what do you want? What do you want to take on? I think for us, we keep going back to location. That's the main thing, is like location. We're willing to be in a smaller, I don't want a huge house. So I want smaller, homier house and like potentially a little bit more land. But it's just something homey that we can, raise our kids and they feel safe and cozy in. But I don't want it to be too extravagant, and the location is ideal. Like I want to still be able to go to our coffee shop and like the little things that we do around here. The farmer's market, I don't want to be too far away from all that. The downtown here is so fun and cute that it's fun to be able to, we're going to a rodeo next week. And so we went to the rodeo kickoff parade, and imagine driving an hour to go to that. We probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, that would have been a lot.
So you have to think about all the little, I guess like the community events that are happening. They do a lot of stuff for kids out here with all the park events. They have summer movies in the park, and they do a lot of kids activities. So I'd hate to be an hour outside of something just because
you're trying to make it work.
Yeah.
It's the perfect house.
So just keeping that in mind, location. So I narrowed my search, and we're going to just wait for something. That one house I was showing you that popped up looked really cool, but it also seems overpriced. So we're like, hopefully it just sits for a little bit, and then the market always balances out the price. It's all about supply and demand. So you have to think about that what's the inventory like in your neighborhood. If they are building a lot of new homes, that does help in a way, because it puts you in a buyer's market more because the inventory is going up.
Inventory is up, and yeah, maybe people are I just want a brand new home to move into and not something that you can possibly renovate. And that's all personal preference. Like what are you particularly looking for? How does it fit your lifestyle? What are your non-negotiables? What's the purpose? Like, what was the purpose of the cross-country move? And stick to that, and try not to play off that emotional aspect. Like, obviously, you want the house to, like, you can picture yourself there, your family, like, really see you living in the house when you tour it. But then after that, if things don't work out or things come up, you need to be fine of letting it go. And maybe that wasn't the perfect house if you thought it was going to be.
And for us, we are really big on praying about any offer that we want to make. And with both of our other houses, we came together, we prayed, we thought, if God show us specifically what's supposed to happen with this, and for whatever reason, we can't see down the line what's going to happen. If there's, something that we wouldn't want to, we wouldn't want to be there. So we do look at the first house as a true stepping stone to get our other house, because we wouldn't have had that cash payment to put on the next house. So it's like, it does increase I guess the equity you build in the home like helps you do your other goals. So like say we wanted to sell that house, we would have still made a really good profit and could have, like, let's say we sold that house and moved out here, we could have bought cash out here, like especially when the market was during that time, like all the houses were way less here.
Yeah. Well,
can't think of that. But so we're doing the same thing here. We're not, we know what our budget is, we know what location we want to be in. So we're not getting distracted by, oh, it's a cute house, it's a good deal.
hour away drives.
Yeah, we're not trying to get distracted by, I mean, it's easy to get talked into something else too. Or you go in person and then you really fall in love with it and you just like don't see it in person if it's not hitting those other boxes. Like I shouldn't have even have seen it if it was an hour away. But also we were trying to think about if that was something that we'd want to do. So I think going through that, driving back and realizing like, no, we need to stick to what we decided.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all of our tips.
I do think that Poppy's going to be sad to leave this house because she always talks about how much she likes this house. And so
this truly is a great house.
It's so beautiful.
Seeing the sunset every night. Even you can see the sunset from the kitchen window. And
from my bathroom. The way it's situated is stunning.
They knew exactly how to build this house with regards to the sun. But yeah, it'll be, I'll definitely miss it, but I know we'll be.
She says she wants a pony though. She's like, I have to ask Dad if I can get a pony. I'm like, well, maybe you should try to ride a horse first and then we can see. Right now she doesn't even want to pet a horse. She's nervous that
she'll warm up.
We went on a walk today and there was a horse. She's like, Mom, pet it. I'm like, will you pet it? And we don't know if I'm sure the horse is friendly, but I just don't want it to nip at us and she's like, no, it's fine. You can pet it.
It's like, you don't want to pet a stray dog
well, it's not a stray, but we don't know its name and we don't know if, I don't know. I probably should wait till the owners are out there and then ask.
True.
I would love to feed it an apple though. Probably should ask about that too.
Yeah, you don't want to feed someone else's animals.
Yeah, I wouldn't like if someone was feeding my horse and I could see from the window.
Yeah.
That'd be weird.
I think we can end it.
Is there anything else on the tips? What if it's not even recorded? Oh,
40 minutes.
Shut up. Are you kidding me? Is there anything else that you would want to add?
No, I mean, we went through basically all of them just through us talking.
Oh, and then I think the last tip I would have is don't have someone talk you into it or talk you out of it.
I don't think we consulted any of our family or friends when we were doing this. It was just
I was talking to Ricardo about this because he was saying something about the house because he also bought the house during he was more during the rush of 2020 where it was like he had multiple offers and went back and forth. And he's like, I got advice from people and I could have been in a different house that would have been like, if I was to sell it now, he's like, the other house would have been probably like a better buy. But he's like, I got wrapped up into what everyone else was telling me. And so it's like, I think that
when you have too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah,
you have too many opinions. You have to just go with the numbers, what makes sense. Don't get thrown off from your budget. I think that's like, you really have to, if you want to buy something, maybe you can't be in the city or the same house. I was looking at something the other day that was saying like parents are putting this pressure, like boomer parents, or I guess like even millennial parents are putting this pressure on their kids to buy homes in the neighborhood that they have a house in. It's like, well, that took you 30 years to get into the neighborhood that you're in. So why do you expect your kids to buy down the street from you? It's like it's not an entry level home price point. And so it's like, if you need to be further away from family or you just need to go off of like,
what's best for you.
Yeah. What's best for your family, what's best for your budget. Like, don't be looking at all the other things that like your goals, right? So your goal is I want to buy a house and maybe we have to be a little bit more on the outskirts, but it's okay because we're closer to our work or we're closer to our church. Then that is a good option, even though it might be further away from what other people are telling you should do. So
cancel out the noise. Listen to your agent and
be on the same page with your spouse because that has helped us a ton. You're the one who found our second house.
I know, it was just random. I was
He's like, this is cool. Should we go see it?
I was online and we had just finished renovating.
No, we had just finished renovating our first house. We finally had all the stuff moved in, and I think we were thinking about getting pregnant again, right? And we're like, well, what would we do?
Yeah, because that house was only 3 bedrooms.
And the neighbor was driving us nuts. So we were like,
there's other things. So that's when I started like looking online, and then we saw the house. And
but we had gotten a quote to see if like we could add on another bedroom into the backyard, because it had that cute backyard area that we could have extended it and like added on.
We were trying to do different things to see
like,
how
could we
fit
add a little bit more square footage
bedroom in the house, and it seemed like a lot, especially after going through the 2-year renovation during COVID and bringing Poppy home.
And then that's when our realtor was like, don't put any more into this house. You're going to make a great profit, but if you put any more in, you're not going to get the rate out, because the houses around you are pulling down the price.
Yeah, that second house, it was quick. I saw it the next day, got our agent. 2 days after that, we went to see it. And I mean, everything, it was like under 40 days between when I saw it to when we closed on it.
And then we knew going into it that we were going to renovate.
Yeah.
So we knew that this time we're not going to live in it while it's being renovated. We're going to find a place. So then I think we had done an apartment during then.
Yeah, we went to an apartment.
We moved out of our other house, because someone had bought it. And so we had moved out. And also we sold the house pretty quick. Like, everything happened so fast by the time we decided to buy the other house and sell this one. It was crazy, but I feel like it was really, truly God's timing, because it all just like fit into place. We didn't have to force anything. There was I feel like that first house was like a great house in the area that we wanted to be, but like it wasn't going to be long-term for us there.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening. We have episodes every Thursday. You can listen to us on Apple and Spotify. You can also check out our YouTube channel and Instagram, The Long Game Podcast, TLG Podcast. And we
haven't posted on in a while. We probably need to remember to post on that.
We're pretty bad at that. We need to get on it. But thanks for
following us on there if you are.
Thanks for listening, and take care.
Bye.